investment landscape has been evolving from decades to decades, right? And I remembered when my parents started investing back in 1997 during the Asian financial crisis, they actually have to look at teletext to absorb information and also prices of a stock that is moving up and down. And in periods, in bear markets like that, where you have to look at constantly evolving prices and making trades via calling your brokerage, it is actually not a very convenient thing to do.
I think personally for me is how I absorb the different kind of information. That's one. So it used to be just relying only on a few key sources of information, which is brokerage reports, for example, and just looking at annual reports. But these days, things have sort of changed over time. I would say that there's a democratization of information where I don't just have to depend only on the institutional brokerage research reports or the annual reports, but I'm also getting a lot of information online through social media, for example, where people are not only sharing their thoughts, but they're also sharing articles from other countries all over the world, right? These days, you get access not only to the research reports which institutions write, but you're also getting reports from fund managers, for example, insights from different bloggers like yourself. I've also seen how people are also trying to do investing on their own. These days, even for myself, I tend to focus on things which I read, I absorb, I make the decision for myself. So it's a lot more like a DIY kind of investing. So I guess that's how the landscape has changed over time, where people are more empowered to make decisions for themselves.
Even as I invest myself 10 years ago during the great financial crisis, it started out much okay. Traditional brokerages have been a great platform for me to start my investing journey. I could buy and sell my stocks online through their website and so on. But I think the information that I received as compared to today, like you mentioned, is vastly different in a way that it is usually a one-way information that I receive from my brokerage. But these days, everything else is about empowerment, reading and then analyzing and understanding, making the decision for yourself. And then ultimately, if you want to buy, sell, or even trade, you could do it like so conveniently in online brokerage platforms. Yeah, I think the digital age in today's environment is changing a lot of the flow of information. Not only it is definitely faster, but it is also more transparent. And as the end user, you actually demands more, you receive a faster information that comes in. And not only that, not only one way information that comes in, you actually also want to discuss with your fellow investors, for example, on that particular news or events that are happening. And of course, from the end user itself, you demand a lot of genuine information, because nowadays with the prevalence of technology, it is very easy to send out and issue out fake messages, fake news, or fake information. So as an investor, I think it is important to be able to read the news, there's always devils behind the details itself.
For me, personally, how that has evolved was back then, I still remembered that I had to open up different brokerages account. And the reason why was because I want to get access to all the different brokerage reports. Today I can get different sources of information from almost everywhere. So there's a huge flood of information, a huge flow of information. Back then, it wasn't as there wasn't as much information, so I had to actually call up individually each broker and then got them to send me their reports, and it was through emails back then. These days, it's very interesting because I don't need to actually do that. I find myself using less and less of these emails, and I find myself using more social media. I find myself using more of the smartphone, accessing to the internet. But these are really up-to-date information, and wow, it's huge. It's massive for me. Brokers are no longer just a simple platform where you trade, but there's a lot of other tools, features which are also coming onto the platform right now. And I can see how Tiger Brokers is riding on this tailwind of technology where it's making things much faster, much quicker, easier to access as well.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more with you. Tiger Brokers, I remember, came into the scene. I think it was the first online brokers came to the scene in April 2020 during the pandemic. I have to be honest, when I opened up an account with them, it was also that low fees and commissions that kind of attracted me to the brokerage, because as an investor, you do want to pay as little fees as possible when it comes to your trade, right? And I started using them to purchase some Hong Kong and also US stocks. And obviously, as I grow to use more their features more often, I found them to be pretty good. First of all, they are a very adept app in mobile apps, and being very good in mobile apps itself means that investors can always just log into the account and then trade on the go. If you have a particular stock that you are buying or selling or eyeing, you can actually debate or discuss with the fellow community and get some first-hand information on that particular companies. Being the first mover advantage into Singapore has its own, I would say, advantages, because first, it knows your user base. It kind of being able to capture your user base in Singapore. But as more competition heats up these days, of course, being the first mover advantage do mean that you have to keep your head-to-head and toes-to-toes with your competitor to make sure that your features are still up to date. Actually, get a lot of your financial information in one comprehensive dashboard of Tiger Brokers itself. So in the past, where we had as an investor and analyst, where we have to kind of shift in and open annual report one by one, gone are the days. Now you can actually open up a particular company that you like, can go to the news tab or financial tab, and you can get all the information up to date within the last 10 years, for example. And that helps us a lot in terms of the analysis, because it not only helps us save time, but also the information and also the genuine kind of numbers that came out of it, kind of being able to help you make a better informed decision. So yeah, that's one of the features that I like.
Something which wowed me was that they have data showing the shareholdings of companies, and this was something which I didn't have access to, because as an investor, not just investing in local stocks, but also in Asian stocks like in Hong Kong, what I do know, and I think you also agree with me, that shareholding structure is very important.
Yeah.
And knowing who are the founders or who are the managers of these companies really gave me an edge to understanding more about the business and more about the companies. And this was something which I saw a huge advantage.
So my first few investments are in Singapore market, and back then I was kind of crazy about dividend investing itself. It was very popular, and I think it was great, because this type of investing back then was tied back very closely to me. I was a young graduate. I was still working, but at the same time I could invest in these sort of blue chip companies in Singapore where it can give me a decent enough sort of returns. As my career moves into another path, whereby I am currently now in more like startup and growth sector. My circle of competence and knowledge also evolves from there. And that's where I started moving and going towards more into the direction of growth companies or subscriptions, software as a service, SaaS companies, in a way to invest. Still not easy, in a way, because the market environment for these type of companies tend to be more volatile in nature. You do get a lot of hype up and down in one particular year. And today we are looking at a very severe down, for instance, right? And obviously, I think one of the lessons learned, I mean, not just to people out there, but also to myself is, and I tend to forget this sometimes, is that a lot of things happen during market cycles, right? Market cycles and economy happens. And sometimes a lot of investors, including myself, are so-called kind of lured into companies which we think are being hyped up. I think one of the lessons I learned, and perhaps to also that I can give to people out there who are first-time investors, try to shift out the noise. There are a lot of information that's coming in. You do get people and friends around you and asking you to invest in a particular companies, equities, or cryptos. And of course, being in the later part of the cycle, you might just get a potential hit from these companies. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of my strategy has changed over the years. I started out investing from having introduced a book called The Intelligent Investor, and that was introduced by my roommate. And that book led me into the insights of the world of investing. I started to emulate how fund managers in the world invest. So hedge fund managers, for example. And I remember losing close to $50,000 on investing in one single stock in the US. And it wasn't just my money. I was overconfident. I thought that, when I made a bit of money, I thought that I could continue making money. So I started pulling in money from my girlfriend, who is my wife now. Fortunately, she still followed me. My mom, my sis, and my aunt. The share price fell more than 30%. And it was also a huge lesson learned that from there, it's not just about following what some of the more successful investors are doing, but really is to get started step by step to do something which we don't feel so overwhelmed. Over time, that strategy has sort of evolved. It wasn't just about trying to make the highest returns, but trying to actually generate consistent returns. Moving from something where I had to invest in I invested in really risky stocks, penny stocks, for example, small cap stocks. Moving on to, like yourself, to blue chips, companies where I know that they'll be around for many years to come. That they have a very strong competitive advantage, and I know that the companies which they sell, the products and services, are the stuff which people would always want to come back for more.
For me personally, as an investor, obviously they lower the fees and commission, the better it is always for any investors, right? But ultimately, when I am choosing the right brokerage, what I am looking out for is more looking at an overall holistic point of view, looking at the features, looking at the communities, and looking at the products that they are offering, right? So commissions is important to me, but it's not the entire objective of why I chose a particular brokerage over the other. And speaking of the community profiles, I remember specifically on this one article where a parent from China actually commented on one of my posts. Being physically stationed in China, the commenter has a lot of very inside news about what is happening on the ground. It may not be the news that many of us read on the article itself, but things like that, very specifically, news like this, which I can get insights from and being able to do more in-depth analysis on it are very important to me.
Yeah, and it makes it also very personal because these are views, these are stories coming from the person itself.
Exactly.
And it's not just, the community is not just localized, but it transcends beyond to other countries as well.
Exactly.
And this gives a more holistic view in our investments in the stock market. It also adds on to our assessment on the view of the world. Yeah, and what's important is also this information are instant and they're up to date.
Exactly.
I'm very happy with the portfolio analytics which they have, the tools, the features, all the data which they provide.
For me, in closing, I think Tiger Brokers have done a very good job at incorporating a lot of great features. Personally, I have been a user myself since the inception of their launch in Singapore. So I've pretty much used some, or if not most, of the features that they have on the apps today.
If you'd like to follow us, if you'd like to follow Brian and myself, you can come onto my site, my blog, dividendtitan.com.
So my blog at 3 Forever Financial Freedom. And yep, you can start your investing journey right away.